The Xbox 360 is 20 years old. It had one of the best video game libraries of any console ever. And yet, hundreds of these games still work perfectly well on the Xbox Series X today, if not better. There are dozens of classic games, hidden gems, AAA titles, and some super cheap games that you can still put into your Series X and play right now. In fact, more than 600 Xbox 360 games work on the Series X today. So in this video, I'm going to run through some of the games that are still backwards compatible. We've got iconic classics, games you probably forgot about, and some really cheap options that are under £3 here in the UK at the moment. And the best part is that most of these games actually run better now than what they did years ago on the Xbox 360. Okay, so firstly, before we get into the games, let's talk a little bit about why and how this works and why some games actually perform better on the newer console. So the Xbox Series X doesn't actually have an Xbox 360 inside of it. Instead, Microsoft developed a backwards compatibility piece of software or a system that essentially emulates older Xbox 360 games. So when you pop a disc into the console, it doesn't directly play the game from that disc. Instead, it downloads a digital package of that game from the Microsoft servers. And that's why not every single Xbox 360 game works. There are about 600 or just over 600 that are supported. And the ones that aren't are usually due to licensing issues, so that could be because of actors or voice actors in them, it could be because of like background music or the soundtrack to the game, or it could be because of sports teams and brands. So a lot of sports games aren't supported anymore, a lot of racing games aren't supported because of the car brands. And a lot of movie tie-in games are also not supported either. But for the 600 games that are supported, that's why physical media is still relevant. That's why these Xbox 360 discs are still relevant today. That little disc becomes your license to play the game on modern hardware. And the really interesting part is that the Xbox Series X doesn't just play these games, it actually enhances them. This is because the system is obviously a lot more powerful. We're talking like 15 years later down the line when the Series X came out. And that means it can upscale some games to 4K, for example. It has auto HDR. It can increase frame rate to 60 FPS in some occasions. So you're often getting a better looking, smoother running version of a game without having to pay for a remaster or a remake. And one of the crazy things is that a lot of these games aren't actually available on the Xbox Store anymore. So if you want to play them, you've got to own the disc. You've got to own the old Xbox 360 disc and put that into your system. So with all that in mind, let's take a look at the games, and we're going to start off looking at some of the classics. And where else to start but with Halo. It's obviously the face of Xbox, the biggest franchise, and yeah, all of the mainline games on the Xbox 360, so that is Halo 3, Halo 3 ODST, Halo Reach, and Halo 4, are backwards compatible and work with the Series X today. And yeah, these are some of the best games, in my opinion, of all time. I, reminisce and have so much nostalgia for back in the early 2000s. Playing Halo 3 online on a weekend, staying up too late. Yeah, for me, this is what kind of kick-started online console gaming. I think the Xbox Live and Halo 3 really took online console gaming to like the modern world. It was kind of the first game that really did that, in my opinion. And a lot of you might be sat there thinking, hang on, there's a Master Chief Collection. And yeah, that is of course true. So these games were all brought in on the Master Chief Collection as well, and you can play that. However, the Master Chief Collection is currently £30 on the Xbox Store. It's about £12 in CEX over in the UK. And it requires, I think, like 150GB download on your Xbox Series X. Now, Halo 3, for example, is I think £2 at the moment in CEX. So it is a lot cheaper, and when you put in your Xbox, you don't need to have 150GB space on there to play. The Xbox Series X enhances this game, so it upscales it and enhances it, and it looks absolutely brilliant on there. So yeah, if you've got the Master Chief Collection, you can obviously play it on that. You don't need to go out and pick up these games. But if you've still got the Halo games sat in the loft, sat in a cupboard, and you've got a Series X, get them out, pop them in, relive those memories from the mid-noughties. And yeah, brilliant games, all still work today. Next up is another staple of the Xbox 360 and the Xbox brand as a whole, and that is Forza. Now, unfortunately, Forza 3 and Forza 2, Forza Motorsport 3 and Forza Motorsport 4 don't work backwards compatibly. However, Forza Horizon does. Now, if you haven't played the Forza Horizon games before, they're essentially more casual, open world, kind of like arcade races, similar to like the test drive games if you've played them at all. Now, they're all absolutely brilliant games, and once again, more modern versions are now available. I think we're now into Forza Horizon 6 is coming out in May this year, so Forza Horizon 5 is the newest one at the moment. But again, those games are A, more money, and B, they require massive downloads, like 100 gig downloads on your console. This one still holds up really well today. Most racing games, even back then, had really good graphics. They seem to have the best graphics out of all the games. And yeah, I would again recommend putting this one in and giving it a play. And then the third pillar of Xbox, we're obviously going to talk about Gears of War. And yeah, all 4 Gears of War games on the 360 are backwards compatible. So that is Gears of War 1, Gears of War 2, Gears of War 3, and Gears of War Judgment. Now, while the first Gears of War has had a remaster on the Gears of War, I think it's called the Gears of War Ultimate Edition, the other 3 games have not had remasters yet. However, all of them are Series X enhanced, meaning when you put them in, you're going to get upscaled to much better resolution, you're going to get higher frame rates, you're going to get less frames dropped, and they're going to look better than ever before. And the best thing is that these games are still dirt cheap today. You can pick these up for like £1 to £2 here in the UK. And then sticking with the shooter theme, Call of Duty is probably like been the biggest franchise in gaming over the last 5 to 10 years. I think it's fair to say that. Obviously, looking back further, we can talk about things like Mario and Pokemon. But certainly the last 5 to 10 years, I would say Call of Duty is the biggest franchise in the world. However, I think this series peaked during the 360 era. Games like World at War, games like Black Ops, Modern Warfare, were I think the best installments in the series' history. I think there have been some okay recent ones, but nothing that compares to these earlier games on the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. So almost every single Call of Duty game on the 360 is backwards compatible. While Modern Warfare 2 have had remasters in recent years, at least to their campaign, all of the others haven't. So that means if you want to play World at War, or if you want to play Black Ops, getting these editions, getting the Xbox 360 discs and putting them in your Series X is the way to play them. And the crazy thing is that these games still work online today. In a recent video, I checked out a few Xbox 360 games. I'll put the link up here. And yeah, I went online, tried to get in lobbies, and believe it or not, you know, in World of War in particular, I got in a game within, I think it was like 30 seconds. There were full lobbies on the games. People are still playing them actively in 2026, which is absolutely crazy. And yes, so not just online that works, but Zombies mode work on these games too. And the Zombies modes are, for me, one of the reasons these two are the best two Call of Duty games of all time. And while they are going up in price now, they still are relatively cheap compared to newer games in the franchise. And then the last kind of classic staple game we're going to talk about is going to be Fable. And obviously this is the perfect timing with a new Fable coming out later this year. It's hard to believe that both Fable 2 and Fable 3 never got a remake. Either of them was never remade. So if you want to play them, then you need to basically play the Xbox 360 version. And once again, both of the games are enhanced for the Xbox Series X, meaning, once again, they look better and play better than on the older hardware back in the day. Okay, so now we're going to talk about some 10 out of 10 masterpieces, games that are like not just some of the best games on the Xbox 360, but some of the best games ever made. And first up, we're going to talk about Red Dead Redemption. Now, firstly, in my opinion, my humble opinion, this game is actually better than the second one. Now, I know the second one had a lot of hype around it, and certainly, you know, in terms of technical achievement, was much better than the first. I still prefer the first game. I think it was a little bit better paced in terms of a little bit quicker, and I love the story in it. And yeah, this was a masterpiece. You know, not just one of the best games on the Xbox 360, but one of the best games probably of all time. Most people would agree. Now, this one runs really, really well on the Xbox Series X. In fact, it gets upscaled to 4K, meaning it looks almost like a modern day game, despite it being like over 15 years old at this point. And if you do own either the Game of the Year edition or the Undead Nightmare edition with the zombies, both also work on a Series X. All 3 versions are backwards compatible. And then sticking with the Rockstar theme, we're obviously going to talk about Grand Theft Auto 4. Now, Grand Theft Auto 5 has been remade for remastered for every single console ever. It's on 360, Xbox One, Series X, PS3, PS4, PS5. Is it on Switch? I'm pretty sure it's probably on Switch now as well. But GTA 4 never has had a remake, which is pretty crazy. And I think a lot of people, you know, talk about GTA 5, Vice City, and San Andreas. And GTA 4 for me is massively underrated. It was the first GTA game that was made on the HD consoles, the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360. And once again, this runs really well on the Series X. I think this is now up to 60 frames a second at times. It's definitely had a FPS boost. And that means that when you're in those busier city areas, it doesn't drop frames. It runs completely smooth, which is fantastic. And once again, like Red Dead Redemption, if you do own the Episodes from Liberty Cities, which is the 2 expansion packs, then this works backwards compatibly on the Series X as well as the base game. And then there is the Orange Box. 5 epic games, all in one box, all on one disc, and they include Half-Life 2 and Portal 2, which are 2 of the most iconic, best games of all time. Now, this one is a little bit pricier at the moment. I think it's about £18 over here in the UK it goes for. And the reason this one's more expensive is because while it was available on the Xbox Store, about 2 or 3 years ago it was delisted. Now if you've got the disc, that still works backwards compatibly, but it's the only way to play it. So you can no longer buy this one in the Xbox Store. If you want to play it, you need to own the disc. And again, like I'm saying with most of these games, guess what? This one's upscaled again to better resolution. I think this one's upscaled to 4K as well, so it looks as good as ever. And finally, for the last of the best games ever category, we're going to talk about the 2 Left 4 Dead games. And remarkable, these games have never been remastered or remade, like a load of games on this list, which I find it hard to believe. Yeah, really, really iconic games. Some of the best survival horror games that you could ever play. And one of the biggest draw of these games has always been the ability to play couch co-op. So 2 of you can sit down and play the game together on one TV. And that still exists in backwards compatibility for both games. So both these games you can put in your console, sit down with a friend or a family member, and you can play these couch co-op on your new Xbox Series X system. Like the Orange Box, you can't buy these on the Xbox Store. They're only available if you have the discs, which again is why the prices for these 2 are kind of slowly going up. They're still in our budget for most people. They're about £10-15 at the moment, but they are starting to rise and creeping towards that £20 mark over here in the UK. Okay, so now it gets interesting. We're going to talk a little bit about some games that maybe are not as well known, people have forgotten about, or people didn't realise they were backwards compatible, and for that reason haven't bought them, haven't jumped back into them. You know, all the ones we've already talked about are big kind of AAA games that people know about. And these aren't super obscure by any means, they're not hidden gems as such. They're just games that still work today that people might have forgotten about. And the first one is Peter Jackson's King Kong. Now everyone knows that all games based on movies are terrible. However, this one was certainly an exception. This one plays really, really well. It's a great game and it's backwards compatible. And this one probably will never ever get a remake or a remaster because of licensing issues. So firstly, it resembled the film a lot in terms of the characters in the game look like the actors in the film. Secondly, King Kong Anyway is obviously a big film brand and the ownership rights for that kind of change every so often. And thirdly, it's got Peter Jackson's name on it. It's called Peter Jackson's King Kong. Now, it's unlikely that Peter Jackson will direct another King Kong film, so it's also unlikely that we will ever get another game based on a film that's 20-year-old. Now, don't get me wrong, King Kong games might come out. There might be a new King Kong game in the future. But in terms of Peter Jackson's King Kong that is closely related to the film, this is probably the only version we will ever get. And similar to the other 2 games we just mentioned, this one isn't available on the store either. This is disc only, and that has also driven the price for this one up to around the £15-20 mark as well over here in the UK. And then we've got one of, my favourite film of all time, one of the biggest kind of multimedia or pop culture franchises of all time, and that is Lord of the Rings. Now, there are 3 Lord of the Rings games on the Xbox 360, but the one we're going to look at is Lego Lord of the Rings. Now, as you can imagine, this one plays like any Lego game, but it's Lord of the Rings themed if you haven't played it already. This one is selling at the moment more than all the other Lego 360 games. Now, there are quite a few of the Lego 360 games that are backwards compatible and work on the Series X. Not all of them. Now, I'm not going to go through each one because I can't remember exactly which ones do work and which ones don't. I think the Batman games are all backwards compatible. The Pirates of the Caribbean games, I believe, are backwards compatible. And I think the Indiana Jones ones are backwards compatible. But I'm not 100% sure if the Harry Potter ones are or if the Hobbit is. But yeah, Lord of the Rings certainly is. And again, this one is disc only, meaning you can't buy it on the store. So again, you've got to have the disc, and that is what is driving up the price. Again, this one gets an FPS boost, so much better than playing it on the older hardware. And it's another couch co-op game, which means you can sit down with friends and family, and definitely more family orientated than Left 4 Dead. You can sit down with friends and family and play this on the one console. And then we're going to talk about a massive franchise, but one that probably people, again, maybe didn't realise it was backwards compatible or haven't played for a while, and that is Tomb Raider. And I'm not talking about the more modern reboot Tomb Raiders, I'm talking about Legend, Underworld and Anniversary. So where the reboot kind of completely reinvented Tomb Raider from, I think it was the Rise of Tomb Raider, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, and I think maybe just Tomb Raider by name. Anyway, those three games, they redefined Tomb Raider, more like modern day competitors or modern day other games like the Uncharted series. However, Legend, Underworld and Anniversary all kind of replicated the early Tomb Raider games, so they look like early Tomb Raider games, like on the PS1, like what people remember Lara Croft as, and they just basically made them style games for the Xbox 360 on modern HD consoles. They're essentially the perfect blend of old school Tomb Raider from the PS1 mixed with modern, at the time, modern hardware, modern graphics and HD gaming. And Tomb Raider Legend is definitely the pick of the bunch. It's one of the better Tomb Raider games out of the entire franchise. Okay, so now finally I'm going to list a few of the cheaper Xbox 360 titles that are still backwards compatible today. And I'm talking about all these games that are currently under £3 over here in the UK at CEX. So first up, we've got the original Assassin's Creed game. And while most of the Assassin's Creed games have now been remade or remastered, like the Ezio Collection, or I think Black Flag's that a remake, the first one, surprisingly, has never been remade or remastered. And this one is enhanced on Series X, so this one looks better today than it ever has before. And it's only £2 at the moment. Then got Alan Wake, another great game, especially if you are looking to play the second one or recently played the second one. That is a more modern game on the newest systems. And this one did get a remaster, but the remaster is considerably more expensive. This one's only £3 at the moment, and I think the remaster on PS5 is like £25. On an Xbox, I think it's about £15 at the moment. So, you know, with the enhancement, worth picking up on the 360 and using that version instead. Red Alert 3, for any strategy fans. This one I paid £3 for, and it is still £3 at the moment in CEX. And we don't tend to get many real-time strategy games like Command & Conquer games on consoles anymore. Obviously, they do play better on PC, and, you know, most people will accept that. But it's still nice to have them available on consoles. Then there are both Crackdown games, so 1 and 2, which were really highly regarded during this generation. The first one is Series X Enhanced, and they are only both, I think, £1 and £2 at CX at the moment. So again, you're getting really good games for, like, you can get both of them for £3, which is absolutely mad value, and play them on a modern day console. Just Cause is only £1.50. First instalment in the Chaos Infused series. Actually, one of the first games I ever got for my 360. I remember getting my 360 back in what would have been like 2006 and getting Forza Motorsport 2 and Just Cause both on it, and being like just amazed, wowed at the graphics of them two games. And then there's Mirror's Edge, which is another really good game that has never been kind of revisited. Just the first one we got on the Xbox 360, and I don't think we've ever had another Mirror's Edge. It was different to anything else. It was kind of like a parkour game where you're jumping over rooftops, and I remember the visuals were very, very like eye-catching, like very sharp whites and reds. Once again, it's Xbox Series X enhanced with both 4K upscaling and FPS boosts, and it's still only £2, so worth picking up as well. And then finally, both XCOM games are £1 and £3 at the moment. Now, I've actually never played these ones. They look kind of like some kind of like, I guess what a lot of games in that era, like Gears of War, Halo, where you're basically a human, I think, fighting against aliens, shooting against aliens. But for £1 and £3, both games still work on the Series X, and for that price, you can't really go wrong. You can't even buy like a coffee or a sandwich for £3 or £4 anymore, can you? So yeah, there you have it. Xbox 360 games still work on the Series X today. They look absolutely brilliant. They run better than ever before. And it means you've got access to hundreds and hundreds of games, mostly at really, really good prices. Some of the best games ever made, and you can run them on a system today. You don't have to jump back into a 360. You don't have to go buy old hardware, buy new cables. You know, if you've got a Series X hooked up to a modern day 4K TV, you're literally plugged in and you're ready to go. Pop a disc in the system, small download, and off you go. Now, obviously, there are hundreds more. Like I said at the start, I think there are more than 600 games. In fact, there are over 600 Xbox 360 games that still work on the Series X today, and there are loads of great games that I've missed off. If there are any that you're playing in particular, or you want to kind of share and highlight with people, put them down in the comments below. Let us know what you're playing on your Series X, what older games. A lot of the games that I've spoken about are going up in value very slightly, especially the ones that are no longer available in the store for whatever reason. So things like King Kong and things like the Left 4 Dead games, they're the ones, and the orange box, they're the ones that are tending to go up in price a little bit and rising. And that's because the only way you can play them at the moment is by having the disc and owning the disc. You can't, like I said, you can't get them on the store, so people are going out and buying the disc. And given these are like 20-year-old games now, some of them, they're becoming fewer and far between and harder to find out in the wild. I love that the amount of love the Xbox is getting online at the moment from a lot of people. And let's keep the Series X going. Let's keep talking about the Series X and supporting Xbox as a brand and supporting the Xbox Series X as a system. And that's not putting the PlayStation 5 or the Switch down, because I love both them systems as well. Anyway, thanks for watching and keep gaming.